Okay, to be completely honest with you, you're not finding 2021 Cooper Kupp in this video. You're not finding 2022 Amon-Ra St. Brown. You're not going to be able to find that player that puts your dynasty team on his back, that wins you your league straight up. Instead, we're going to be diving very deep. We're going to be going and looking at names that are literally free. Some of these players will be on waiver wires. Other guys, maybe if you're in a dynasty startup draft, you're taking them in rounds 24, 25, 26, and you're hoping that they're able to turn into wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 3s for your dynasty team. And I'll tell you right now, if you get a wide receiver 2 for free in dynasty, oh my gosh, that is something that can change the course of your season. Obviously, they're not going to be that top end stud, but depth is so hard to come by in your dynasty league. But before we get into anything, make sure you go down there, drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty Fantasy Football. And if you want to check out any of these player props, of course, you can find the link to Underdog Fantasy in the description of this video in the comment section. When you sign up for Underdog Fantasy and use promo code FLOCK, they're going to match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $100. So it's pretty much free for you to check out. It's available in damn near every state. And also, when you sign up with promo code FLOCK and make a minimum of a $10 deposit, you're going to get our 2023 Dynasty Fantasy Football rankings, which is exciting. But January 14th, Austin, Texas, Fantasy Flock Network meetup. I better see you there. I better see you. But that should be about it. Let's go through. Let's dive into this. And let's start it off with a Mr. David Bell. And with David Bell, full transparency, I liked his cost in Dynasty rookie drafts when we were getting him in the middle of the second round. I thought that he was a very solid bet. I was looking at a wide receiver that had, in my opinion, a compelling prospect profile coming out of Purdue. Now, way early on in the process, when people were ranking him over Chris Olave, I thought that was crazy, but we're talking later on in the 2022 offseason. So yes, I did like him. And with David Bell, he had a very disappointing rookie season. You had Donovan Peoples-Jones taking that next step, cementing himself as an every down player for the Cleveland Browns. And I will say they play two completely different roles. I mean, if you just look at Donovan Peoples-Jones and David Bell standing on the football field together, you know that they're not really competing for the same snaps, not really competing for the same targets, but still it is going to hurt if he is taking 100% of the snaps in two wide receiver sets alongside Amari Cooper, where David Bell is going to be exclusively regulated to the slot. But regardless, if we take a step back and look at the prospect profile that you had for David Bell coming out of Purdue, the reason I liked him is, first off, you had him breaking out at 18 years old. Number one thing you love to see for those wide receivers, that they can dominate the second they step on a college campus. That translates to NFL success very highly. And if we're going to be looking at his dominance at Purdue, I mean, his best season there, he's accounting for about 40% of the market share of receiving yards on a per game basis in this Purdue offense. So you have dominant production. You have that production coming early on in his NFL career. Now, the issue is, of course, he's going to be regulated to being that slot flanker wide receiver, extremely slow. I mean, he ran a 4.65. You know, he's not going to be someone valued highly in the NFL because the NFL is going to value their speed, those guys that can stretch NFL defenses. That's why Amon-Ra St. Brown fell to the 4th round back in the 2020 NFL draft. But regardless, with David Bell, he still goes in the 3rd round of this past year's draft. And if you are looking at the Cleveland Browns, this is a team that gives the most money in NFL history to Deshaun Watson. This is a team that at the same time trades 3 first-round picks to get the man. So you don't have a lot of wiggle room for the Cleveland Browns to be able to go out there and make moves. It's not like Cleveland's going to be able to go through and invest heavily into the wide receiver position this offseason. So you're looking at David Bell pretty much in that locked and loaded wide receiver 3 role for the Cleveland Browns. While I definitely have to take a step back on how excited we were about Deshaun Watson, and yes, he disappointed 100%. And yes, we shouldn't completely give up on him because, I mean, he hadn't played football in 2 years, but we should still be less excited. I think David Bell is still a fine player, a good slot option on an offense that could be better in 2023 if Watson could take that step forward. So hopefully that's a fine argument for David Bell. Someone else I want to go to is John Mechi. Now, full transparency, I've been trying to find updates with John Mechi and his leukemia. We had some good reports coming out in November. I had a very hard time finding something. Maybe Thomas can find something to throw it on the screen for y'all. We had some good reports coming out in November. I am operating under the assumption that John Mechi will be back to play football in 2023. Like I said, I am having a difficult time finding information. But if we're looking at that option in round 24, 25, 26 of your Dynasty startup draft, John Mechi is a player that if he can get 100% healthy, fingers crossed, he does have upside. Because you are looking at a player that at Alabama was very, very good. Now, everybody loved Jameson Williams in this year's NFL draft. I mean, we had to battle people with Jameson Williams. People were telling us that he should have been ranked over Chris Olave. People were going crazy. But if we're looking at this, Jameson Williams averaged about 100 receiving yards per game in this Alabama offense in 2020. John Mechi did about the same. John Mechi was sitting there at about 90 receiving yards on a per game basis at Alabama. Now, of course, John Mechi is very similar to a David Bell in that he's not going to be the fastest man on the field. He's not Jameson Williams. He's not going to be stretching NFL defenses. But from a fantasy football perspective, this can be another wide receiver that's operating underneath. This is another wide receiver that can command volume at the next level, which is what we want in that PPR format. That's what we want in Dynasty. I like the production. I like the fact that he ended up going higher than most people were assuming in the NFL draft. He went with the 12th pick in the second round. Now, of course, Houston is a piss poor offense, but they have the second overall pick. I mean, they would have had the first overall pick if Chicago wasn't horrible. They can most likely, I don't want to say solve their quarterback issue, but attempt to address it. It'll be better than Davis Mills. I'm not going to say it's going to be good, but it'll be better than Davis Mills. I think John Mechi could have talent if he is healthy. Now, our next guy, Romeo Dobbs. I mean, we spent all offseason saying Romeo Dobbs was nothing, blah, blah, blah. But now I am more excited about Romeo Dobbs than I was coming into the year. Because if you're looking at Romeo Dobbs, I think he had a very impressive rookie season. Now, of course, we have to look at the situation going forward for the Green Bay Packers. And we have to acknowledge the fact that Rodgers may not be here. I mean, we all saw the viral clip of Jameson Williams asking for his jersey and Rodgers saying, no, not this one, bud. I don't know if he was looking at a rookie that has logged, 10 receptions his rookie season and going, who the hell are you to ask for my jersey? That may have been it. I don't know. Obviously, a lot of people are speculating that maybe Rodgers is out of Green Bay and hell. I mean, imagine Rodgers in Tennessee. I mean, playing for the New York Jets in San Francisco. Could be very nice. But regardless, if we're going to be looking at the wide receiver room here in Green Bay, Allen Lazard, not under contract next season. So Lazard may very well be out of this situation. You have Randall Cobb, 33 years old. I mean, regardless of if Rodgers is there or not, it's hard to imagine that Randall Cobb is much of an impact player whatsoever. So you may have both these wide receivers leaving, Christian Watson, Romeo Dobbs being the only guys left. And you know, I've been screaming for God knows how long that Christian Watson's the wide receiver one here. But now you have to pay up for Christian Watson, and Romeo Dobbs is almost completely free, even though in my opinion, pretty good rookie season. Now let's go over to one last wide receiver, sticking it with the 2022 rookie wide receiver trend. I do not want to sit here and act like you need to trade for this player. I don't want to sit here and act like he is phenomenal. Please don't assume that I'm a Velus Jones Jr. fan, okay? Please do not think that. But I do think he's possibly worth a roster spot. Now, this is a draft pick that proves how bad the Chicago Bears front office is. I mean, they traded the 32nd overall pick for Chase Claypool. They're the first team since 2010 to have fewer than 135 passing yards on a per game basis. They earned the first overall pick this year. For you Chicago Bears fanboys, you Justin Fields fanboys that are in my DMs, that are in my mentions, something's wrong with you. Seek help. But if we are looking at Velus Jones Jr., why he was a horrible draft pick at the beginning of the third round this past season, this is still a Chicago Bears team that, well, yeah, the passing offense was a train wreck this past year. It can't be worse. It's not going to get worse than 130 passing yards per game. It only can get better. You have Darnell Mooney, who's coming back from a season-ending injury. Who knows what Darnell Mooney is going to be like? Chase Claypool showed legitimately nothing at all. Equinemius St. Brown, I mean, Dante Pettis, these guys may very well be on the way out. Velus Jones Jr. did have an injury-riddled rookie season. I don't think he's good. I mean, the man's like going to be 26 in year 2. I think he was a very bad draft pick at the beginning of the 3rd round by the Chicago Bears. But if we're talking about the very last spot on your dynasty roster, I mean, I still think he's worth it unless you're playing in like a 10-team dynasty league where you can only roster 18 guys. And of course, you're not looking at them. But now our next guy, someone I'm actually a little bit more excited about, is going to be Tyrone Thornton. Now with Tyrone Thornton, the New England Patriots also have showed an inability to evaluate wide receiver talent. I mean, the New England Patriots have been horrible over the years at signing wide receivers, drafting wide receivers, whatever you may say. And Tyrone Thornton actually had one good game. Remember, his NFL debut was pretty nice, but he went in the 2nd round strictly because of his speed. We know that NFL teams value speed higher than we should in Dynasty because speed at the wide receiver position is going to allow NFL offenses to be opened up. It's going to take safety attention. Defensive coordinators will have to adjust even if that player is not drawing targets. And if they're not drawing targets, they aren't scoring fantasy points. But still, he can provide value to the Patriots without providing value to our fantasy teams. Now, I do want to look at the situation he is going to be in New England next year, however, because this is an extremely weak free agent wide receiver class. It's going to be difficult for the Patriots to say, okay, well, you know what? We have Mac Jones on a rookie deal. We have some money to spend. Let's just go sign a few free agent wide receivers. Can't really do that. Go look around. I don't see any names they can go after. And if we are going to be looking at the names they currently have on their roster, I wouldn't be too surprised if it gets thinned out even a little more. Jakobi Meyers is a free agent this upcoming year. Now, of course, they may sign Jakobi Meyers. He may end up being back in New England. But as it stands, Jakobi Meyers, Nelson Aguilar are free agents. We don't know what team they're on. So the only wide receivers that are going to be left in this wide receiver room are Kendrick Bourne, Devontae Parker, and Tyrone Thornton. But you have to look at the contracts for these guys. So Devontae Parker right now is slated to make about $6.5 million. 0 of that is guaranteed. There's not a single penny of that the New England Patriots have guaranteed to Devontae Parker. So there is an outside chance that Devontae Parker may not be with the New England Patriots this next season. Kendrick Bourne at the same time, I mean, under contract for about $7 million. 1.5 million of that is guaranteed. So they could decide to move on from Kendrick Bourne and they would end up saving about $5.5 million. So if I'm looking at this entire wide receiver room for the New England Patriots, Tyrone Thornton is the only guy that I can confidently say will 100% be there next season. He has 2nd round NFL draft capital. Yes, he may have only been drafted there due to his actual athleticism, which doesn't translate to fantasy production, wide receiver in particular. But still, like I said, I'm not trying to sit here and tell you one of these players is going to be a top 5 option overall at wide receiver. But would I be too surprised if Tyrone Thornton can put it together, if Mac Jones can take a step forward this next year, and if he's the only guy left standing in New England, could he be a top 24 option? Possibly. I think that it is in the range of outcomes. So let me know what y'all think with these guys. Let me know what you think of this video. I'm going to do something similar at running back where we are just diving very deep down and trying to give you some ideas for the very end of your roster. But that's all I got for you. I really hope you enjoyed the video. Really hope you got something from it. If you did, drop that like, subscribe to the channel if you play Dynasty. If you want to check out any of these player props, you go to the link in the description. You go to the link in the comment section. Promo code FLOCK. They'll match your first deposit dollar for dollar up to $200. And with promo code FLOCK, you're going to get our 2023 Dynasty rankings. Fantasy Flock meetup, January 14th, Austin, Texas, Zilker Park, Saturday, 2 p.m. Be there, be square. Thank you again. I appreciate you. Hope you have a great day and hope we get to see you with the video tomorrow.